go together. It's folded the wing mirror in on Gerardo's car, so he's not going to be able to see who's coming down the inside on the left, and pretty soon that might be David Pouget. But what you said before about Pouget, though, David, he's just methodical. He's hanging back. He's not getting involved in any unnecessary fights because he knows that Milan will break away. It's a fantastic start from the 23. They're 4 wide there by the look of it. Antonio Albertetti gets a fantastic launch off the line, jumps down to the right-hand side, but does not get past Stefan Fast. They're 3 wide in the middle. That's Halm in there as well with Latchko. There's a humongous lock-up from the 23. He's going to pile into the side of Stefan Fast, who gets turned sideways in front of the pack. Can everybody avoid him? There's contact with Albertetti. And look at that, Teo Calve from 10th on the grid down into second place. I say down into second place, up into second place by the exit of turn 1. Made a very strange noise, those cars. A very good strange noise. It sounded like it should be a big burly V8 most of the time, but then other times it sounded really high-pitched. Byron Crawford's going to be making some high-pitched noises right now as Gary Tall pokes his nose down the inside. Spit of flame on the brakes, bit of a lock-up as well. Is Dunstan going to go through? He's going to try and have the pair of them. Thank you very much, he says. Oh, there's so many of them sideways at Stowe. They're all running so wide. Yes, it's a fantastic sight on the CCTV. They're all just completely sideways going through there, but they're 4 wide on the way into club, and this is only the first lap.
We're just leaving now, and Matt has just said keep up. I'd like to remind you that he's driving a 1.2 litre turbo. This thing is absolutely nuts.
Fantastic stuff, man. You never lose it, do you? It's like riding a bike for him. Absolutely epic stuff. But this is phenomenal by Vegas because he's just bouncing between these 2 Audis. He's under attack from Longchamp, then he goes forward and has a go at Fjordbach as well.
Well, we're up to episode 10 here on Commentator's Corner, and I've got the man, the myth, the legend from Cheshire himself, Mr. Chaz Draycott. Hello, buddy. Thanks for jumping on board, and how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very good indeed. Looking forward to another year of commentary. As you and I have both been experiencing so far, sim racing never sleeps, so we've been enjoying that. But I'm looking forward to getting back out there in the real world and cracking on with some.
Definitely, for those that do know, Chaz does a lot of the Renault Sport Clio Cup Europe and also the FIA trucks as well, where there have been some big hits. I think the notable one is the Hungaroring, if memory serves me correctly, Chaz.
Yeah, there was a mad situation. So I did a lot of it remotely last year. I did a lot of it from my studio office thing I've got here at home. And it was the second race of the year, and I didn't quite know what to expect. Going to the Hungaroring, one of my favourite circuits. I've watched so much racing there, so I know sort of how vehicles and cars all sort of react to the track. Trucks are just on a different level. Everything's so different about them. But there was a big send up the inside into turn 1, basically 3 wide on the way in. One truck hit the right rear of another, and as you can imagine, with them being over 5.5 tons, the brakes are rather important. So one of them slammed on the brakes, got hit on the inside. He was backwards in front of the field. Nobody hit him, and I don't know how when there was about 16, 17 trucks going through. But then he got going again, and then coming down to turn 2, the left-hander had a brake failure, all on the right side, so it just went straight on. Took out the barrier. It snapped the posts in the ground, so they had to dig the posts out of the ground, relay the foundations of it, put new posts in, rebuild the barrier, and then it was smooth out a massive dent that it made in the grass bank because it took the railing out. It took the railing out that was 5 feet behind the barrier.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Stefan Fast it was. If you just put in FIA truck crash Hungaroring, whatever, on YouTube, you'll hear my horrendous voice and a horrendous noise as this truck goes through a barrier.
I'm wondering if they had Norby Michaelis on standby just to assist.
Yeah, probably.
Being his local track. But Chaz, you've given us a bit of background. We've worked together on Williams Esports. Also, we've both known of what each other has done. Chaz, if you don't already know, is doing the epically brilliant Formula One World Championship, where it's 1990s tributes on single seaters, which is an absolute hoot. So don't forget, you can go to Chaz's social media, his YouTube channel. It's in the link in the description down below, which has been brilliant. It's been lovely seeing the old Arrows and the Williams and the Benettons and the McLarens and all those old style liveries, and it's epically done, mate. So I have to commend you on that one, which is awesome. How did you get bitten by the motorsport bug, buddy? Is my first question. And who was the big influence in that?
My dad's always watched F1, and he's never been like a massive fan of it, but it was just like it was something to watch on a Sunday for him. You know, he's always been intrigued by motorsport. And watching F1, you know, I used to do loads of drawings as a kid. So what I'd do is I'd be literally sat on the floor drawing everything I see, and it'd just be Formula One cars, race circuits, and things like that. There was a famous moment. I say famous in our family. It's a famous moment where I was on the floor drawing the track map of Spa, because we'd watched qualifying on Saturday, and it was the 1998 Grand Prix when there was the massive accident at the beginning. And obviously, as a kid, you know, all you're thinking is, "Wow, a big crash! That's ace!" But you know, I should have been into I should have been into the racing rather than the crashing. But I was drawing this track map of Spa, and I remember drawing Ralph Schumacher's Jordan, because I don't know why, but I was always a fan of Ralph Schumacher over Michael when I was younger. Just because I was thinking, oh, he's the underdog of the two brothers. I want him to win. And I think I like the bright yellow helmet that he always had. But I was drawing this track map. I'll get around to it eventually. And I turned to my dad, who was sat on the sofa watching it, saying, "Dad, how do you spell Spa-Francorchamps?" And he was like, "What do you mean Francorchamps?" He's like, "It's just called Spa." And I was like, "No, it's Francorchamps." And he was like, "No, they just call it Spa. Don't worry about it." Bang on cue on telly comes Murray Walker. No, Jim Rosenthal it was, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Jim Rosenthal in the studio on ITV. "Hello, welcome to Spa-Francorchamps for the Belgian Grand Prix." My dad, I just looked back at my dad like, yeah. He looked at me like, "You smart little..."
Get.
And that was it.
Well,
and he knew that I was always going to be a gobby little thing from that point on. But you know, I just, part of my brain just picks up these details and things, and always has. And I think that was the initial indication of it.
first race you ever saw trackside?
Oh. It was Oulton Park. I think it would have been the 1999 British Touring Car Championship. I don't know. It would have been one of the support races first. But I specifically remember being there when Thompson and Plato had massive fisticuffs over the top of the hill because Plato had bumped him into the hairpin, and they were 3 wide, and Thompson basically over the crest of the hill just right hand down him. It's one of the funniest things you'll ever watch.
Oh, I remember that one.
And Plato's car, we were stood at the top of the hill, so they were coming from our right and went past us. And just the way that Plato's car bounced down the hill as it just went off, it was so funny. Me and my brother were crying laughing. I think it was that race meeting, actually, where they used to have Clio Cup supporting them with the older shaped Clios, obviously. And there was a massive accident. There was 3 of them, 3 wide over the top of the hill. And the car on the left basically got the other 2 squeezed together, and he sort of came across. He got turned, and he was sideways right in front of us. And he hit the barrier and almost hit the marshal's post. But the car, like, hit 45 degrees on, spun in the air, took off, and then came to the other side of the circuit. And me and my brother thought it'd be a good idea to go and ask the marshals for the bumper that came off it. And we didn't realize that it was going to be a thing that they actually said yes to at that point. So me and my brother said to Dad, "Oh, we're going to go try and ask the marshals for some bits of that car." And he was like, yeah, all right then. And then we went down the road. The 2 of us come back carrying this bumper above our heads, like, "Look what we've got." And then eventually we put it in the car, and it lived in my dad's garden for about 5 years. It was a hell of a memento. I remember my mates, whenever my mates came around to my dad's house, I was like, "Look at this, I've got a race car bumper in my garden." Just one of them things as a kid, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so funny when you just go, "Yeah, we don't think we're going to get it." And it's like, yeah, it happens. And it's just like, you think, we've just struck gold all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. We were just like, "Oh, sell this on eBay." But like, it was just absolute, just one of those moments as a kid where you think, you know, I'm really proud of that. You know, I went and asked for something and I got it. You know, it's just one of those very fond memories I've got of motorsport. And Oulton Park's always had a soft spot for me. You know, well, I've always had a soft spot for Oulton Park. I don't know what they think of me. They probably think I'm an idiot. But the whole place, I just, you know, I've grown up there. I've lived it. I was really proud of, in 2010, me and my mate Casey, I used to live about 2 miles from it, if that, literally on the A49. I was on the A49 living with my mum, and me and my mate used to, basically, he'd come over on the Friday night and we'd cycle there. We'd cycle all the way to Oulton Park. Every single 4-wheel event in 2010 we did. Every single one. We got the season passes at the start of the year, and we cycled there for every 4-wheel event, as MSVR called it.
Yeah, and I've had I was up there for the mini challenge trophy last year.
Mm.
That was a pretty well. I mean, for me, it was actually the start of 10 days away from home because I was working with a social media client. Was there for a day and a bit, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was the Saturday, and then the Sunday, I had to drive from Oulton Park. Well, no, actually, when the race day finished on the Saturday, because it was shortened because of a massive red flag. I think it was Matt Hammond in the
Oh, yeah, I
Triple
heard
Eight
about
car. Yeah, I was
Mm.
there when it happened, and we had 3 laps of racing. And then the next thing that I realised what I had to do is I did a full day's worth of work. I drove from Oulton Park down to Dover because I had a
Yeah.
ferry to catch the following morning because my next destination was Le Mans.
God. Oh, sod that.
Yeah, and I still remember getting to the hotel at midnight, unpacking my car, just like basically odds and sods of what I needed. Luckily enough, I had a spare backpack for that.
Mm-hmm.
And they went, "Oh, what time do you want breakfast in the morning?" And you know, when you're just in that blur where you just go, I think I'm forgetting something here, and I forgot that the room came with breakfast anyway. And I said, "Oh, I'll be down there for 6:45." And my ferry was like at 7:30. I woke up late, so I literally I shat the bed. I think it was 7:15. The ferry is due to leave at 8. So I had to get up, grab something quickly, eat it on the fly whilst driving down to Dover. Then I get to Dover and there's a 45-minute queue to get through French passport control.
It has to be French as well, doesn't it?
And passport control asking me if I had my PCR test. I said, no, I'm fully vaccinated, because that's when you had to have 2 shots in order to go over. And luckily enough, I get a notification from the ferry company. Your ferry has been delayed. Well, if you'd have told, and I was like thinking, if you'd have told me that bloody 45 minutes earlier, I wouldn't have shat the bed and rushed out the hotel and nearly spilt half my breakfast down my front. It's one of those things. This is where myself and the guests that we have here on Commentators Corner, it's great, Chaz, isn't it? Because we get to tell stories to each other, as well as enlightening people out there. But how did you first get involved in commentary, mate? That's the big £64,000 question right here. How did you get involved?
I basically, the reason I got into iRacing was that I used to watch Apex Racing TV. I was always looking for, because everyone watches real world motorsport, but it can't happen all the time. You can't just make events happen. And I always thought, this sim racing stuff looks good. I want to watch some virtual racing. I used to watch a series on Live for Speed ages ago. I can't remember the name of the commentator. There was a woman commentated on it. I think it was Laura Rose or something like that. And she was, it might have been Emily Rose. But I used to watch that and it was great, but there weren't many rounds of it. They had inconsistencies with how many drivers turned up and who turned up and so on. But then I started watching Apex Racing TV when they did the series on iRacing, which was the BSRTC organised by British Sim Racers. And it was great because it was like a mock British Touring Car Championship. They had massive grids, great drivers. Ash Sutton used to race in it. I think he still does as well in certain bits that they do. But Ash was amazing in that. He really shone through, but there was a number of great drivers. And I just got hooked from there. And I thought, what, when I get a PC, I'm going to get into sim racing and do that. And a few years down the line, I'd sort of made slightly good friends with Alex Simpson, who runs Apex, and Andrew Woodhouse, who was the other guy that was commentating on it at the time. And to me, it was like, wow, these guys are great. These are the proper commentators of it. I contacted Andrew loads and said, how do I get into this? And then I think it was it might have been the beginning of 2018. Alex basically got in touch and said, we're looking for some more commentators, mate. Do you fancy giving it a go? And I was like, yeah, I'll do a trial for it and so on. And I was covering an MX5 evening of 4 races at Watkins Glen. And it was great. And it went really well. And I sounded dead boring at the time because I didn't want to get over the top and so on. I'm really animated. I mean, anyone watching now will notice I'm always doing this with my hands. I've always got a pen or something in my hands just to mess with. Cool pen, by the way. Look at that. Sick.
Oh, mint.
Anyway, it was just that trial basically, and I got that done. And Andrew Woodhouse gave me loads of praise. Alex liked what I was doing, and I carried on doing the MX5 from that point onwards, really. And then I just kept getting praise for it. I could then learn how to broadcast using SDK when Apex used that. I was one of the first people to use SDK with the guys because Apex developed it. So I had early access to that, and it really helped me sort of get to know it. And I've seen it develop from the very beginning. It's great. But eventually it just came together. And then over lockdown, I'd always enjoyed listening to David Addison. And I was scrolling through, it was, I think, April 2020. COVID was in its first height, and I was just sat at home. I was on Discord scrolling down, and then I saw David's very well-known South Park character avatar. And when you scroll down Discord, obviously on the servers, it gives you just the avatar of who's online. And I was like, what's he doing there? I was thinking, like, out of all people, I know David like wasn't a fan of sim racing, but like he's properly got on board with it. I was like, that's amazing. But he was in Apex, and he was in a locked channel because I wasn't doing much work for them at the time, so I couldn't get in. So I was like, I don't want to go and pester him anyway, so I'll just send him a message. And I messaged him, and about 5 days passed, and there was like 2 broadcasts that he did with Apex, and I was like, oh well, so he's clearly been active on Discord, and he doesn't want to get back to me. That's fair enough. You know, I imagine he has people all the time saying, oh, help me commentate. But like, I was just a bit disheartened. I was like, you know, you don't ask, you don't get. That's the thing, you know. I always ask for things like that. And then a few days later, I had a message off him, like this big essay apologizing, saying like, oh, I didn't really know how to use Discord. I didn't realize it was even a message. And then I just asked him for a bit of his time, and we had a great chat, had a proper laugh. Managed to get him to do a few boring cars rounds as well for the British Boring Car Championship.
Oh, with the VW Jetters, yes.
Yeah,
another good series.
That was a hell of a lot of fun. Got David to do a couple of them, which he loved. He even bigged it up on Tin Top Tuesday as well to Alan Hyde. And I lost my mind when he did that. And he fully named me and everything. I was listening to it like, wow. And then, yeah, we just got on really well. He lives around here. He's only a few miles away from me. And, you know, he loves Oulton Park as well. It's where he first started out. But from there, it's just grown. You know, David's got me a lot of work. I'm with an agency at the minute that's not been announced yet. But, you know, I've been getting a lot of people sort of send me bits of work from here and there, and it's just growing and growing. So I must be doing something right, but I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it.
Yeah, it's really good to see people like David and myself actually that have crossed that divide, that have broken that glass ceiling of real life commentators coming into sim racing.
Yeah.
Funny moment is a nice little bit on the show. Now, there was a particular time when one Chaz Draycott was actually producing me. I remember this one. Bambino Kart Club, Wilton Mill. I think you were doing, you were working with Alpha Live remotely, and wasn't it Paul Ricard, if I remember that weekend? We had all the fancy F1 graphics.
Yeah.
And Chaz says in my ears saying, like, I can't remember for the life of me what I said. I said something completely wrong. Chaz corrected me, and I name dropped him on the stream. And I said, thank you very much to my my producer, Chaz Draycott Media. And the laugh that I heard in my ears was absolutely...
Me and James were in the next room, and we were just laughing our heads off because we were like, we didn't think you'd actually say it live on air like that. So you just came out with it, and we were like, what? We were just laughing our heads off. But that was a mad weekend because I was supposed to go out to France and go to Paul Ricard to the French Grand Prix, and I was so excited. And then they were like, oh, we can't get you a media pass. You can't come in. And I was like, oh, great. So I had to sit at Wilton Mill in the rain. And commentate remotely, but it was so cool because even when F1 was on, you know, we had access to their official live timing graphics package and all of that, and all the sort of background stuff that only the teams and the organizers get. And it was so cool to see it all in action. I mean, to some people, it may not mean a lot to be like, oh, look, this guy's got some different graphics on his screen, but to know that that's coming directly from F1 and they're giving it to me to commentate on, it's seriously, it's a real cool moment. And the Clios didn't disappoint. Oh my God, the Clios never disappoint. But wow, Paul Ricard, it was just insane. It all came down to the last lap. I'm not going to give spoilers out actually, but
no,
it all comes down to the last lap. It's phenomenal race.
You know what, Chaz? Send me over that link. I'll put that in the description below so people can watch that as well. But yeah, that was actually funny enough the first time that we'd met, because we talked before. But we hadn't actually met in real life, and that was the first time. That was for the Bambino Kart Club for their opening round that season, and it was just so funny. Like the way that Chaz came up to me later, he said, "I can't believe you said that." I said, "Mate, I had to do it." You know, it's like instinctive reaction.
It's always interesting like that, because when you've worked with somebody sim racing wise or just virtually, when you meet them in person, it's just a whole different ball game. And I always look forward to when I can meet someone in person or can commentate with somebody in person, because when you've got the physical energy as well going on with, just moving your hands and stuff, it just adds a lot more to it. Me and David worked together during lockdown on Boring Cars, as I mentioned, but we then got the chance to work together at Hey Fisher on Clio's when they were at Hockenheim. Hands down, race 2, best race I've ever commentated on, ever. Another one for the description, I think. But
yes.
It was just being there in the same room as David, seeing what he was doing. I was a bit in awe because I was like, oh my God, it's him. But like, we'd met a few times before that, but seeing him work his craft was great. But the physical energy we had between the two of us and having a laugh with it, it made it so different and so much more enjoyable. And I'm looking forward to doing a bit more of that this year, because a lot of the stuff I've done is on my own, but I really enjoy having 2 commentators in a box because you can just bounce off each other and have good banter with it.
Well, I mean, it's like when we did, what was it? The Neo 6 Hours of Monza for Williams Esports. Like the banter between me and Chaz was brilliant. And it was so funny, like saying, yeah, now you can listen to my scratchy tone of voice or something like that for the next hour or so while so-and-so has a break, which is great because it just shows that even on sim racing, and I think also quite recently, you were at Apex Racing TV's new studios, weren't you, for a particular broadcast? Tell us all about that, mate, because they've gone to town at Apex, haven't they?
Yeah, Apex have done a lot of hard work, and it's Alex again as well. He's him and his partner Lee Thompson, their business partners. He's just, what they've done is amazing. They've got a facility where they've got their drivers living. They've got all the sims. It's basically the sim center, but they've got a studio upstairs with a full stage, all this custom lighting, massive screens, and it's just so serious. It's really cool. I went and saw it a long time before they booked me for that gig. They basically said, "Come down, have a look, see how it is," and I loved it. But when I went there to do the show, so much had changed and so much had improved, and the whole thing went really well. There was only 2 hiccups all day, and it was both because of me. The first one was we had Rode Wireless Go lapel mics, but we had their Smart Lav on our shirts. So we had the Smart Wireless Go on our right sort of hip, and then we had the receiver for the earphones so the guys could speak to us on our left hip. And basically you have to hold down the button on the top of the Wireless Go for, I think it's like 5 seconds. It's quite a long time. Usually it's like 2 seconds with most tech, but this 5-second button really caught me off. So we were walking in, I'd literally do the presentation and stuff on the stage and be a presenter and so on. And then we'd throw to Tim Cox, who was commentating. And he was literally, as I sat on the sofa, there was a wall behind me. He was the other side of the wall at a desk, and there was a door at the end. So I would get up as soon as I was done, run through the door, round to the desk, sit down with him, headset on, and then we'd commentate on the race. Race had finished, Tim would wrap it up, I'd run back in and present again. I did that for 6 hours straight, and it was nuts, but it was so much fun. I was so exhilarated by it. Luckily, I didn't have to do the last 3 races of the day because we had 9 races.
Oh, jeez.
With the last few races of the day, I got to have a bit of a break while they were doing it because I had Austin Knight commentating instead. But what a day and what a place. The studio, the kit, they had every angle covered, and it was really, really strong. They nailed it. They really did. But it was me not turning my mic on for one of them. But luckily, Oliver's mic next to me picked me up anyway. And then the other one was, we were interviewing Jamie Fluke, one of the Apex drivers. And basically, we were meant to talk about the upcoming race, explain the track, talk about the cars and so on. But then we were interviewing Jamie, and Alex comes in my ear and says, "Right, we need to wrap this up now, boys." And I was like, "Okay." And then Oliver went to ask another question. I interrupted him. And I said, "Sorry, Oliver, we've not got time, unfortunately, for any more questions, but thank you very much, Jamie," and so on. And then I was like, "And now we're going to head over to Tim, because the next race is coming right up now from," I think it was Michigan or something like that. I was like, "Michigan," and here we go. And then handed off to him. And then all I heard in my ear was Alex really panicking and going, "Tim, are you ready? Chaz has handed over 3 minutes early." I was like, "Oh, shit." And then, that was it. But it was a very, very funny moment. But they were the only hiccups all day, and it was just caused by me being an absolute clown. But everything was spot on.
It
Alex
happens.
and the guys were, they were so accommodating to me as well. But it was just, I love, it sounds stupid, but I love getting stuff wrong because you get the chance to correct it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather do that than pretend I never get anything wrong. It's a more human way of looking at commentary and presenting.
I 100% agree. The funny thing was, I'm going to go back to Le Mans. like I was talking about when I had to do that mammoth journey, which took me, I think, including a food stop. I think I left at 5:30. I got to the hotel at midnight, 6.5 hours later. Got lost because I was so bloody knackered as well. But going to Le Mans, there were two things that happened. So I'm there for social media clients. I've already got my media pass. I've got my wristband and everything. I get a phone call from Henry, good old Henry Baudette, at 11:30 French time. Yeah, the pride of Barry himself.
Yeah, indeed.
Who we both had the pleasure of working with, both, funnily enough, at Kart Masters, because I did 2019. I think you did 2020, didn't you?
Yeah, I was supposed to be just doing interviews, but then all we got was one-word answers out of the 8-year-olds. So Luke said it's not worth it. He was like, "Did you enjoy the race?" "Yeah." "What were the conditions like?" "All right." "Cheers." Bye.
Yeah, back to you, Henry.
Luke was just like, do you want to just go up and join Henry in the box? I was like, I don't know anything about karting. And Luke was like, that make it even funnier. I was like, brilliant. So I went up and I got schooled by Henry Baudette. He is a genius, that man. He is so good at what he does. He's one of the best commentators I've ever met. But what a weekend, Kart Masters is insane. I never knew how serious karting was, and I think that was the perfect weekend to learn, because Jesus Christ, it's on another level.
I think the funny thing was it was actually, funny enough, in 2019 when I did it with Henry, because I'd been approached by Claire and the team at TVKC, saying, "Are you available?" And I was like, "Yeah, we'll get you to do pit lane." And one of the things I like about Henry is that if he's leading it, he has a vision. And it's like with the Road Tax Grand Finals, because he's the voice of that. And he said, "Are you still coming to Bahrain?" And this was like for last year. And I went, yeah. I said, "Look," I said, and I basically said to him, I said, "I'm the only English speaking commentator that has talked about Project C20, and I know the ins and outs. I've been dealing with Steve and Daryl at Road Tax for the last 2 years on it." And he said, "Perfect." So he now knows that his go-to person for Project E20 from now on is Muggins here, which is great. But he's very, it's really, really funny, because he says, "How do you work then with regards to like your entry lists and everything?" I said, "I just pull out my laptop." I was, this. And he's still so old school, but it's great. It's part of his character. And the funny thing is I'm actually older than Henry, which is an even more worrying thing. Like, I've embraced technology, and Henry's just like, he's a bit like Captain Caveman. He's still in the Stone Age, but he's...
To be fair, my programs are over there, but I have a massive folder of all the programs I've had. You can probably, no, they're about here.
Yeah.
But they're on that one. But they're all in massive binders. And what I tended to do last year was for Clio's, because we had 51 cars at Monza, and I know it was stupid, but it was great. But in the wet as well, double trouble. But to make sure, I obviously learned the cars over the year, but what I did was I took a massive pack of colored pencils with me.
Oh, God.
The majority color of the car, whenever I'd seen it in practice, I walk around the paddock with it on a clipboard. Just do a little colored scribble next to the car, or a little idea of just what the design looks like, and just do it, because that comes from me drawing as a kid, making in my head, linking what I'm looking at to what car it is. Because I always say this to people, that not everybody, that. Hey up.
Don't worry.
The dog's chewing his ankles.
No, the dog's hiding upstairs. But no, the reason why I was actually reaching down was because I'm actually going to let people into a little bit of a secret, which is how I prep for any karting event. And I'll actually show you. I tend to do this, Excel spreadsheets. So I've got little bits there. Like, people go, "Why don't you have all the entry lists in front of you? Why don't you have them all printed off?" And I said, because it just gets in the way. And considering at Karting Campillos, where I was in Spain in late February, the desk had enough room, because we were live streaming as well. So I had enough for the live VT feed, the live timing, the XLR digital converter for the track announcements and everything like that, and then my laptop. Anything else was a bit of a squeeze, or a bit of a small mercy. So drinks, not a problem. There was a little ledge that I could prop them up, so like can of Red Bull, a bottle of water, a bottle of Coke, that kind of thing. But like literally, you had more room to swing a cat in there than you did having put paper on a bloody table. But yeah, like you say, it's quite interesting how everyone works differently in terms of their preparation. And I still remember when you posted on Twitter when you did the ADAC Total 24 Hours of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and you went, and I still remember, I think you made a comment on Twitter and you posted the picture and you said like, I've got all these things here and they're not even in the right order. And then it was sort of like having the instructions of what the BOPs were, but it was in German.
Yeah, I can literally see the document from here. I know exactly which part of the binder it's in. We had, I think, the entry list, because it's obviously the Nürburgring, we had 105 cars, I think, entered. No, it was less than 100 that year. It was like 96 cars, but still you've got up to 5 drivers in each car. So we had about 5 pieces of paper. Brian Oliver, flipping heck, he was over-prepared, if anything. He had the entry list in front of him, but he filled the wall with sheets of paper of like the drivers that were in DTM that year, the drivers that were in GT World Challenge, GT Masters, all of it. He filled the wall with all of this information. Sometimes I think it might have been a little bit too much, but the amount that he brought with him, the prep was phenomenal. It really was. In like color-coded binders, everything. It was really, really, really top-notch. But sometimes I always say that you can overload yourself with it. You need to have it presented in a way that is so simple. Something I did for Sports 2000 recently, actually. I did the same that you've done there with Excel sheets. I'd have like driver number order, because that's really important to me to have them in number order, car number. Then the driver, where they are in the championship, how many points, and so on. But then I'd have like their best result and their worst result. Just little facts that you can throw in. That's all you need. You only need little things like that. If you've got enough time to go around a paddock and find out, then you will. It's part of the job. You go and ask people stuff. You find out little details about how someone's weekend's going. And I love doing that because I love meeting the people. I love talking to them. But one important thing for me is, while it's nice to have cars on an entry list in number order, which is, I think, the most important thing, because if you see a number 2 car go past, you're going to look straight at the top of the thing, straight at the top of the entry list. But if you see the number 99 go past, you're going to start looking a bit further down. And it's just simple things like that. But everybody gets so obsessed with what number the car is. They don't think, I say it again, I say everybody. I'm not sort of tarnishing all commentators with the same brush, but I know a lot of commentators that get so obsessed with what number the car is. They don't think, I'm going to see what color it is first before I see what number it is. If you can be honest enough over the airwaves to say you've got 3 red cars in a race, but one of them is number 2, 30, 58, whatever. If you've got one of the 2 red cars coming towards you that were battling, you'll say, oh, only one of the red cars has emerged from, say, Cops into Brooklands, for example.
Yeah.
And, you could say, oh, it could be the so-and-so, it could be this. But you're going to know what color it is first before you see the side of it, before you see the numbers on it, and I think that just noting down what color something is, especially if you actually draw that color rather than just writing red on it, it's going to be a lot easier to reference. And that's something I've always tried to stick with because of, when I'm growing up watching touring cars, watching F1, I'd always see the car and I'd know what it was. I'd point at it because I could visually tell. Might not know which driver it is exactly because they were all identical in each team, but yeah, I think car color is more important than people make out when it comes to commentating on them.
I think in some respects, I recognise drivers' race helmets in karting straight away.
Now that surprises me, not because of your ability, but because I think these days every bloody helmet looks the same. They've all got a shape like this. They've all got some sort of shape. You've triggered me now. They've all got that shape everywhere. It's just that shape a million times, isn't it? Every single helmet looks the same. And I was actually praising Jimmy Broadbent yesterday for the fact that his lid is literally just black with a few solid stripes on it, and it looks great. Because that's how helmets should be. But everybody's got so many helmets now with just these weird striky shaped things all over them, and it's like, I don't know who that is. It's like, and I'm not going to always know who everybody is. Like, we're never going to know who every single driver in the world is because of their helmet. You could show me a few drivers in F1 now, and I'd only probably be able to guess them based on the sponsors they've got, so I know what team they're in. But there's just so many helmets that look the same, and I want to go back to the days where you'd have your Graham Hill just the blue with the arrows on the top. You'd have Senna
Yeah.
with the green and the blue stripe. You know, just
Mhm.
they need to be simpler. And I know that it's an identity thing, and drivers want to make them look pretty up close. But when you're far away and when you're even in an open wheel car, you know, it's got to be striking. But then everybody thinks, oh, it needs to stand out. I'm going to make it fluoro yellow or orange. Oh, well, so's everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a difficult place to stand out now, is helmet identity. But I'm impressed that you can tell them apart. But I suppose it depends how long you know a series and you know the people, doesn't it?
I think when I've commentated now, this is going to be hand on heart my 5th season in Europe. And so, like, I've seen the drivers develop. I mean, there's one particular kid, Austin Lee, who's originally from Portland, Oregon, now lives in Weisendorf in Bavaria in Germany. His dad works for Adidas in Herzogenaurach. And he has the big word torpedo across the back of his race helmet with the Surf's Up Big Kahuna sign on the back as well, which is nice. And that is what I would call identity. But the thing is that with and for a lot of people, when they say, well, when you're commentating, why aren't you concentrating what's happening in like 15th or 16th? Well, granted, we don't always see the track. I mean, you know this from case in point as well, Chaz, that sometimes you're not always in a commentator's box. You are either in a room or a porter cabin of some description, and you're hoping to God that if it's 30 degrees Celsius outside, that the bloody air conditioning works.
Well, that's it. I mean, I was really surprised when I first flew out to Nogaro last year to do Clio Cup Europe. You know, I was studying track maps. I was studying like the Google Maps of it, even, you know, going on Google Earth and so on, and just putting myself in the paddock and wherever I could to be right. Where's the commentary box? Where am I going when I get there? And all this. I had a nightmare of a trip out there that I don't want to get into again because I'm fed up.
No, because you and I had multiple discussions behind closed doors on that one, and it was not pretty.
No, it was a very, very bad trip. But that it was my own fault. You know, problems with understanding the COVID regulations and so on because I'm an idiot. But when I got to Nogaro, it was like 28 degrees. It was that typical day that we get over here where it's dead foggy in the morning and you think it's going to be baking hot this afternoon. It's going to be brilliant. And it was about 28 degrees in April, but there was no wind at all. And it was baking hot. I got sunburnt as hell. But then the race came around and they were like, oh, you're going to be working with these guys. And they introduced me to all the production people and they had this big truck and it was like, oh, cool. And they were like, come back here at like 2:30 and we'll show you your commentary box. I was like, okay, it's up there though. I know where I'm going. And they were like, no, it's in here. I was like, what? And then they put me in there. And it was honestly a room that, I mean, if I stuck my arms out either way, I would touch both walls. Like it was just a booth. And I was just like, I've come all the way to France, and they were using the same headset I've got, a BPHS1, almost the same audio mixer that I've got. But I was like, I've flown all the way out to France and been through all this.
For this.
Especially, it annoyed me a bit at first because I was like, I've come all the way out here to use the same kit I've got at home. And I'm in a truck. I'm watching it on a screen. And I was just like, is that worth it? But honestly, the buzz you get from being in the paddock and the vibe of meeting the drivers, you know, I didn't speak any, I still don't speak any French, really. You know, I walk around with Translate on my phone and I go up to the drivers and I go, this is what I want to say. Like, you know, I'm just like putting my phone in their face. But, you know, I have a laugh with a lot of them. I even got a trophy off Frank Horn. I've got it here. I've got it literally behind my monitor. He was a really nice bloke, but he was really happy with what I did in the commentary all year. And he was in the gentleman drivers class, and you know, he didn't speak any English, I didn't speak any French, but somehow we just sort of hand gestured and communicated. And then he gave me that, and he said, for you, because I was joking all year, saying, "Oh, I'll have that one if you don't want it, because you've got loads." Because he was really, he was always getting trophies from gentleman drivers.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, I'll have that one," and he was like, "No, it's mine." And all this. He had it like I saw him with one in the airport, and I was like, "I can take that if you want." And then he just turns to me and he goes, "For you." And I was like, "Ah, you're funny." And he was like, "No, for you." And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, said I've done a great job, and it's got all the Monza thing on it and everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's gorgeous. It's really gorgeous, and it's very sharp though. They've not sanded off any of these edges, but it's they're stunning trophies, very stunning. But it was a massive surprise. But getting to meet the drivers and the vibe of it all is just, it's so important. It's so important, and I realized that more as the year went on.
It is, because it's like with karting. You know, the family atmosphere that you have in the paddock. Okay, yes, us as commentators, we're in a very privileged position.
Yeah.
However, sorry,
I have that with this. This
yeah.
headset kills my ears.
No. I mean, the thing is that like because Chaz is using an Alta Technica headset, I'm using EPOS, the H3. Which is linked directly. So this gives you an understanding that we all have our personal preferences to what we use. I mean, I even have a Viper Gaming by Patriot V8 380 headset, but unfortunately,
I've got two. I've got another one over
there. I was going to say it's like a little like mantelpiece over there. But we both have our own preferences, but it works for each of us, and I find this quite comfortable. It was like a decision that I thought, well, because I'm of the Tim Cook, Steve Jobs generation when it comes to computers, and Chaz is of the Bill Gates variety. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly. but the thing is that it works for what we need it for. But exactly. Yeah, it's like you say, when I think it was 2020 wasn't too bad for travel, going overseas, but 2021,
yeah,
I think. Well, actually, there was a lot of times when I wasn't able to go because I would have to automatically quarantine going over there.
Right, yeah.
And
that's the problem because, like, I mean, when I did the Nürburgring 24 hours, it was at the end of 2020. It was like COVID is literally still a brand new thing at that point. You know, it was September, and it was like, this is going to be a nightmare. And it was just wear a mask on the plane, wear a mask indoors. That's it. And I was like, okay. And now it was like going to France and so on. You know, you have to have a test before you go.
Yeah.
And because of how long you're out there, you have to get a test while you're in that country to come home, which was one of the scariest things, knowing where was the right place to get a valid test and so on. But like doing all of that, and after being turned away from my first flight because I didn't have the right type, every single time I went to an airport, I was absolutely cacking my pants. There was a woman that was particularly difficult in Italy. I remember coming home from Bologna, and she was saying that because my test was in Italian, because it was done at Imola, it was done at circuit, because my test was in Italian, not English, Ryanair might not accept it. And I was like, I can get Google Translate up on my phone and do the camera thing where it changes the words on the paper for you.
Yeah.
And I showed her and I was like, look, it translates, and you know what that means in Italian. That means negative. Like, what's the problem? And then she had a word with somebody and eventually they let me on, but they made clear they weren't happy about it. But it's getting easier again now. I was looking at the regulations to get to France the other day because I'm going there soon, and you don't have to test or anything if you're vaccinated now. So you just have to sign a declaration basically to say, I've not had COVID recently. I've not got it currently. And if I do get it, I'm not going to be a knobhead. That's basically it.
Exactly. It's playing by the rules. Because for us as commentators, you know, I mean, I spoke with Joe Bradley from Radio Le Mans quite recently. He said it was so awesome to be back in Daytona and Dubai. And this is off the back of him and Hindi actually watching my commentary, because Rhys Hunter, who's a well-known karter in the Republic of Tyne and Weir as Hindi likes to call it, Sunderland, of course. Him and Joe Bradley, they were watching it. And they said that was bloody difficult. And Joe Bradley went, how can I get to be your number two? I was just like thinking, imagine that if I could get Joe Bradley on board with the Euro trophies as the pit lane reporter. Happy days. Don't know if that'll ever happen, but you never know. You never know. And the thing is that with that kind of thing where you know that John Hindhaugh and Joe Bradley have watched you on commentary, the door's always open. So right, we're going to get back to our questions, but it's been great because from our perspective here, to give you an insight into how difficult it was during the initial throes of the pandemic when PCR testing was required. I'm going to be completely honest with you. The worst times that I've experienced with PCR tests are as follows. When I was in Le Mans at the Rotax Max Challenge International Trophy, because I didn't have to do a test to go out because I was fully vaccinated. However, I had to do the test to come back. The test centre, as always, in France, nothing always opens on time, apart from a racetrack. So I had to phone the organizer, because Henry, as I was saying to saying about earlier, Henry Baudet phoned me at 11:30 Tuesday night and said, "I can't make it, mate."
Oh no.
And so I ended up doing 3 social media clients and 47 races in one straight week. I was absolutely cream crackered on the Sunday night, and I made sure I made up for it because I at the place where I was staying right by the Gare du Nord. It's called Apart City. They do these epic pizzas. You get yourself an epic, like thin crust pizza, thin crust pizza, and a drink for €12. I went and had 2, and they did not even touch the sides. That's how much it was needed.
I miss pizza.
I know. Chaz at this particular moment in time has put himself through the keto hell at the minute, but at least in some respects, it'll help him a little bit in towards this season. But yeah, I mean, we're now going to fire on to the other questions now. But like I was saying, PCR testing, France and Bahrain, one of the worst experiences. It's like someone had stuck the TGV at 350 kilometers an hour up my nose and rooted for grey matter.
I had that in Austria. It was like he stuck it in and he just went bang. Flipping heck. I thought my eye came out.
It was quite funny though in Bahrain because you had to turn away, take off your mask, and then they go like that.
Yeah.
And because my hay fever kicks off whenever I go to a different climate, I went, oh, that's cleared the old sinuses, was my first response. And then I just walk off and start sniffing. They go, have you got COVID? No.
You see him with a stick come out and it's got your brain on it. It's like...
Be like something out of Spitting Image. Okay, you mentioned about Ralf Schumacher earlier on, back in the 90s. But are there any other favourite drivers that you've got, buddy?
Mika Hakkinen.
Oh,
Mika Hakkinen. Hands down, he is one of not just the funniest drivers you'll ever see, but he's got a fantastic mix of great professionalism, incredible pace. He's got a wonderful sense of humor, but it only comes out at the right points.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's Mika. You know, he's one of the only drivers Schumacher ever feared, and he was just an absolute don. He still is. I mean, go back 3 years ago when he was still racing GT3s in Japan. Like, it's insane, mate. Like, he's just such a great guy. And there was wonderful footage of him recently reuniting with David Coulthard at the Race of Champions, and they were just having such a laugh together on screen. And he's just an absolute star. I love Mika, and I think he's a proper inspiration to any driver, you know, because he had his massive accident in '95 at Adelaide. Horrible accident. I listened to Beyond the Grid with him, and if you haven't heard that, by the way, it's amazing. But he talks about like even having a tracheotomy at the side of the circuit and all of the operations and things that went into it. But he's so funny about the way he comes across in all of it. He's just he's got such a great way of describing things in English, even though it's not his first language. Other than him, I'd say there's always an interesting controversial rivalry that's gone on in British touring cars, and that's Jason Plato and Matt Neal.
I was hoping someone was going to bring it up. I still remember Rockingham Motor Speedway 2011.
Yeah, I literally quoted that yesterday. I quoted it yesterday going, "You be careful, Jason. You be careful, son." Because Matt Neal's a scary big bloke. I've met him twice, and he is a scary big bloke. But he's a great guy, really great guy. Him and his sons, you know, they're fantastic. But out of the rivalry, I've always preferred Plato because he's a little cheeky bastard. And he gets away with it because he loves playing the villain, and he always says it. He loves it.
He has never shied away from being the ultimate pantomime villain of touring cars.
No, he's great at
it. The thing is that if people say, "Yeah, well, John Clennon was a bit of a mean bugger," I said, "Yeah, but you can't. No one in God's green earth, when it comes to touring car villainy, can do a better job than Jason Plato because he does it for a reason. It gets him noticed. It gets him a fan club. Yeah. And you see completely the different side of him when it comes to like Fifth Gear on Channel 5. That's like a completely different person, but he still gives old Mad Dog Nidell a bit of shit, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. To be fair, I follow Tiff on Twitter, and he likes a good rant, does Tiff. I
Yeah.
actually met him as well. That was a mad one. That I've always listened to Tiff. He's always commentated on stuff. He's voiced over the touring car games, the old Tucker 2, and even I think he did the first touring car game as well.
Yeah.
I was sat at, it was my first time at Mallory Park. I was sat at the commentary box, just doing some notes, and then the door was completely the opposite end of the room, pretty much where that one is. But it was on the back wall. It was behind me completely. And I was sat there doing my notes, and someone knocked on, and must admit I was so rude. I was knackered. I was fed up already. And then I was just sat doing my notes, and then there was this knock, and I went, "Yeah." I don't know why, because I should have just been like, "Hi, can I help you?" Because you want to come across as professional when it's the first time at a circuit. That could have been the race director, circuit owner, anybody.
Yeah.
And I just went, "Yeah," and then he just went, "Is it all right if we come and do some filming in here?" And I did that sort of like something out of a film. I was looking at my thing, at my notes, and I sort of went, "I recognise that voice." I turned around, and it was Tiffany Dell, and he was walking towards me, like ready to shake my hand. He was like, "Sorry to disturb you, mate. I was just wondering if we can do some filming in here in a bit." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, you can do what you want." And I was just like, "I'm really sorry. I had no idea it was you." And he was like, "Oh, it's all good." And he was great. He was doing something with one of the Caterham drivers. I can't remember the brand it was for, but he had a guy with a camera on his shoulder. He had like a wired microphone, and they were looking at the timing screen and doing like a panning shot, and then talking to him, and he was talking to camera, and then watching the race out the window. It was great just seeing that, because obviously you only see the moments of it on TV when it's cut together, but it's great to see the minute or so either side of that, where he's like, "Oh, do you want me to just try that again? I'll do this," and then he recomposes the way that he emphasizes different words. And oh man, I loved it. And he was a great sport. We took a selfie together. It's one of the worst selfies I've ever got of myself, but he looks great. He looks great for his age as well. But he loves a good old rant, does Tiff on Twitter. He doesn't hold back.
He does. I mean, the funny thing is that I'm going to bring another side to this story. Now, people might remember when Jason was in the MG6 with Triple Eight, when it used to be known as I think it was KX Momentum Racing, when you had the KX energy drink from Tesco, and then also their fuel as well. There was an opportunity for people to win some prizes for asking Jason Plato a question, and the funny thing was, I was the first 5 people would get a prize.
Right.
I ended up being person number 6. But I wasn't worried about that, because I was already there for that weekend as media anyway. I was catching up with a couple of friends. And a big shout out to Paul Clark from Stopwatch Hospitality, who made sure I got fed and watered that weekend, just off the Bradham Strait. Have to give him a shout out. He's been a good friend for many a year. And I still remember asking questions. And I said, when are we? I said, Jason, obviously 5th gear, there's been the old, the challenges and everything. Is there going to be any times when we're going to see Mad Dog Nidell, as you called him, on the Beetle jump, doing something as silly as that, where he's trying to launch it as far as possible? He said, "Yeah, he's just a mad old bastard, isn't he?" Like literally got a big laugh.
Tiff's brilliant. He's an inspiration as well. He's just such a character. Mm-hmm. He always has been, and he always will be. He's a star, and he can drive a car. That boy, he can drive a car.
Yeah. I mean, when you said about and this actually comes into nicely to our next my next question, is that the question I always ask is, have you ever been starstruck with a racing driver? Well, that kind of reaction when you said, "I recognise that voice," and then you go, "Yeah," I bet that was one of those moments where you actually got starstruck, thinking, "Bloody hell, I can't believe it is actually Tiff Nidell in front of me." Has that happened with anybody else?
Yes. There was 2 in a day, and I was already having the weekend of my life. I was at Red Bull Ring commentating on Clio's. Most beautiful place in the world, hands down. I've been to Iceland. I enjoy Iceland. It's great. Spielberg in the mountains when it's a nice day. My God, mate, nothing comes close. I'm sorry. Like, no matter where people are, wherever they have advocate for, Spielberg, hands down. But I was in my hotel bed on Saturday night, and I saw that the next guy I was going to name, if there was another sort of inspirational driver, Rickard Rydell, was at Red Bull Ring. He was he's like the sort of mentor for Dino Begnovic in Formula Regional, and Dino's a great lad as well. Really like Dino. He's a lovely guy. But Rickard is like, he sort of sponsors him and basically helps him out. But Rickard knows his way around commentary as well, because he commentates on F1 in Swedish, over in Sweden. He does it on Swedish TV. And I saw that he was there on his Instagram story. And obviously, with growing up with Super Tourers and so on, I've always loved Rickard. You know, he's an absolute demon. There's a video of him lapping Bathurst in the Volvo S40. And again, if you've not seen it, watch it, because Jesus, that boy, he pedals it like mad. And I saw he was there, so I thought, you don't ask, you don't get. Again, similar to the David situation, you don't ask, you don't get. So I messaged him off the back of his story and said, like, are you still around tomorrow? You know, I've always been a big fan. I'm not going to lie. It'd be great to meet you and come and say hello. I explained that I was commentating on Clio so I could get into the paddock and whatever else. And he was like, yeah. He's like, we'll be free about 4 o'clock because that's like the sort of biggest gap either side before we've got a race or anything like that. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll pop down. And then me and Chris McCarthy were there, and we walked over and went to see Rickard. And Chris was like, who's this guy? I was like, Chris.
Chris,
like, this is like my childhood hero, Chris.
McCarthy, you're getting a slap the next time I see you.
But we were walking over, and as we went round a corner and went through a door, I went through a door thinking that the other person was letting me through, and we banged shoulders, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Rubens Barrichello. and he was with his son, Dudu.
Oh,
Barrichello,
yes. Dudu was racing in Formula Regional that weekend. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, out of all people to bump into and all this. He's like, no, it's so, he's like, it's cool, man. And he's so cool, Rubens. But Dudu had just had a really bad race, and he wasn't in the best of moods, but there was still that little twinkling of just really happy, positive Rubens coming out. Still took a picture with me and everything. So I was like, I'm sorry, Rubens, I have to ask, because my mate Tom is going to absolutely kill me if I have a picture with you. And yeah, and there we did. He stood chatting for a bit. I was asking him how everything was going, how he thought Dudu was getting on, and so on. And it was great. And we were on our way to go and see Rickard Rydell at that point. Went over to see Rickard, and you know, it was a great conversation. We met up and had pictures together and all sorts. And because he does commentary as well, he was asking me and Chris stuff about our commentary. You know, it wasn't just us going, oh, what's the Volvo like? Like, it wasn't just us fangirling at him. You know, it was a two-way conversation, because he was intrigued at what we were doing and sort of our careers. And he was such a top bloke. You know, he's so clever as well. But he showed me a picture, because we were talking about said Volvo, as you do, and he's still got it. It's in his house. He showed me a picture. He was like, I've still got it. He was like, look, I'll go through my phone. And he had it. And he's got the Volvo. It's in like this pristine white garage. And he's got a balcony like on the 3rd floor, or 2nd floor, 3rd one up, where his office is. And he's basically, it overlooks where this Volvo is in this pristine white garage. But up the wall, all the way up, is a collection of his trophies that goes roof high. And then a massive long rack with all of his race suits on it in a line. With the Volvo in pristine condition at the bottom. It is insane. Like, I could not believe it, mate. I've probably got a screenshot of it on my phone, because I wanted, because I asked him to send it me, and he was like, I can't do that, sorry. But then, I've actually got it here. I don't know if it'll work on my camera, but there you go.
My! If IKEA made a display for a touring car, that's what it would be. Well done, Rickard.
Change the focus so you can.
That's mega. That is absolutely mint.
Like, what a guy. But he was well happy to show it off and so on. But yeah, to meet Rickard was probably the main time I was properly starstruck, just because of how chill he was. You know, you expect them to be a bit fed up, like, oh God, this guy won't stop asking me questions and this, that, and the other. But honestly, like, to see him like that was pretty amazing. And I was very grateful for his time, because it was genuinely nice time spent together.
Okay, just a couple more questions to go, because we have been talking for quite a bit. Bloody hell, I didn't realise that. I know. This is the 3rd episode that has breached the 60-minute mark. But hey, this is the whole point. It's about having a chilled out chat. And plus, also, it keeps us away from what else we need to do as well in general, working.
That. Well, I'm not gonna lie, mate. I'm gonna go and sit on Gran Turismo 1 for about 3 hours after this, probably, because
you've been doing quite a bit of editing on Gran Turismo 2, haven't you, as of late?
Well, the problem with it is that I'm doing it on an emulator. So for anyone that doesn't know, an emulator basically means you can play PlayStation games on a PC. And I've emulated Gran Turismo 2, and I love the game, but because I'm doing it as a series, I feel like I have to be in proper recording a video mode and like proper talking through it and doing everything in the right order. Whereas I want to just play Gran Turismo as well. So what I've done is I've downloaded Gran Turismo 1 and I'm just going to go through that and mess about with that. And then when it comes to recording time, I'm doing Gran Turismo 2. So I'm flicking between the two of them, but I've got notes on where I'm at because I'm going to probably forget. So, yeah.
True. Chaz, one of the other, now you've mentioned several commentators, including David Addison. Are there any particular ones, maybe apart from David, that stick out to you and I wouldn't say emulate or idolize, but people that you hold in high esteem with regards to commentary?
Charlie Cox. Charlie Cox is, for me, the best commentator of all time. And it's an interesting choice. I've always been told. But he is the most entertaining commentator I've ever seen. And I always try to be like Charlie because he was energetic, and he was just so funny. His puns were so quick. But that's the thing. Like, I always think it's important as a commentator, not just to read out facts to people and just get monotone and just tell people exactly what they're looking at. You have to be entertaining and provide a story to it as well. And Charlie did that so well. And there were 1,000,001 puns that he came out with that I could probably rattle off hundreds and we'd be here for another hour. the combination of Charlie Cox and John Watson on British touring cars.
Oh, God,
was
yes.
Just because John is fantastic. He just says it how it is. You know, David's told me so many times about how much John says, oh, well, you shouldn't get points for 30th place. Back in my day, you only got them up to 5th and all this.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's proper old school as John, but he's exactly how you'd want him to be. And him and Charlie together was great because, you know, they'd have a little disagreement of whether there was contact or what someone was trying to do, but it was always exciting. And listening to the pair of them was just phenomenal. There's a great clip of, I think it was Snetterton 1999, and Jason Plato was teammates with Jean-Christophe Bouillon, and the two of them in the Renaults were leading the race. But Ivan Muller in his Vectra had been through hell to get up to the front of the grid. The rear bumper was waggling off the back of the car. It fell off down the straight. The bonnet was all crumpled in. The headlights were pointing in opposite directions. This Vauxhall was battered. And then they were running along, and Plato was hoping for some good chances in the championship. And there's a radio message comes over the tannoy and over the production as they go down the straight. It's Jason saying, tell JCB to hold off Muller. And it was like, it comes off and Charlie Cox is just saying, you've got to be kidding. Trying to hold off Muller in this angry state. It's like trying to hold off the Terminator with a water pistol. He's like, you've got no chance. And then they go around the next corner. They go on board with James Thompson, who's just behind it. And Muller's absolutely mugged JCB. He's gone to his right and he's just creeping ahead of him on the straight. And he's like, oh, on board with Thompson now. And look, there's JCB not doing a good job of holding off Muller. And then they have a massive crash at the next corner. And he just shouts, it's a goal. Because he absolutely pounds into the side of James Thompson. But
I still remember Murray's iconic line. He says, I'm going for first, he says. We know which finger got stuck up there as well, which was brilliant.
Definitely not that one.
It was neither that one either.
Oh, no. And mate, honestly, Murray, with stuff like that. There was another moment, actually. I think it was 96, and it was Winkelhock. He got overtaken by Beeler at the last corner at Snetterton, and Beeler mugged him off. And then obviously the Audi was still four-wheel drive at that point, so it disappeared off up the road. And then Winkelhock's going down the straight, and we're on board with him, and very much like Clellard, he just holds his fist up and goes like this. And Murray says, oh, he doesn't like Beeler. He says, Dummkopf, he says. And Murray just comes out with it. I was absolutely in bits on the floor. But, I mean, it obviously goes without saying, you know, Murray Walker. What an inspiration, man. It's in 3 days, it will have been a year since we lost Murray. And, you know, it was that's one of the that's one of the few things that have really ever hit me properly hard. Like, getting a bit deep here, but like whenever I've had any sort of like friends or relatives pass, it's always I go into just like what I call robot mode, where I'm just, you're that sad about it, there's no emotion, you know, you don't cry, you don't get actually physically upset or anything like that. It doesn't affect you physically that day. But when Murray went, it was, I mean, I'm not blaming him, but it was the worst possible time, because I was 3 hours into a 6-hour endurance broadcast on iRacing, and I was sat here, and I had a message come through from my mate who hadn't messaged me in quite a while on my right screen. I thought, oh, I'll have a look at that. And then he just said, sorry, mate, Murray Walker's passed away. And I was like,
Yeah.
So I then started saying we're going to go to a bit of a break, and then I then started sort of, I wanted to not like, I didn't want to do that thing that people do where they say like something terrible's happened and then don't give any information on it. Like I didn't want to be like that, but I was that upset and that flustered. I found myself doing it, and you just, I've hold my hands up. I fell apart live on air in just trying to go to a break, and my co-commentator Ed May did the same as well. And yeah, for the next hour or so, we were just talking about Murray and trying not to fall to bits. But yeah, Murray's a star, and he always will be. His energy and his puns and everything. One of my favorite lines that not everybody has ever heard is, speaking from memory, I don't know how many points PK's got. It's beautiful because that's how it should be. It's honest, it's human, it's entertaining, and as a commentator, I strive for that. Charlie and Murray.
I hand on heart. I mean, Charlie Cox. Like I've watched a lot of his stuff over the years, and I think that one of the biggest things about Charlie, very, very underrated. Very underrated.
Massively underrated. Massively underrated.
But Murray for me was the voice that brought me into motorsport. I still remember 88 Monaco Grand Prix. I'm going back eons in Formula One terminology. Considering with what's happening in Bahrain is at this particular moment in time, as Formula One 2022 is coming along, and we're not going to talk about side pods because Chaz has already talked about that on Twitter. I'm not saying any more, but all I'm saying is, one particular team, Silver Arrows.
Horrendous.
But
functional though.
Yeah.
Aidan Millward, don't kill me, honestly, because Aidan was very, very quick to jump down my throat and be like, yes, but it makes the car quick. I know, but
don't jump down my throat.
It looks toss. Anyway.
It's a load of dross from Brackley. But I think one of the other favourite moments is when Nigel Mansell has got the biggest lump on his forehead and he says, well, where's that lump? Bang! Like literally points straight away.
Right up there. Sorry.
It was, and I think really that sort of like helped talk about some of our favourite moments in commentary, because you already talked about some of your favourite moments, like with the Hungarian trucks, Hockenheim, Paul Ricard for Clear Cup Europe. But there is one final question to conclude episode 10 of Commentator's Corner. Yes. And you're going to like this one, Chaz.
8 inches. Sorry. What?
Random. Right. If you had no budget limit.
I don't.
Okay.
Oh, no budget limit.
No budget limit.
So no
we break the
budget.
glass seat. Yeah, no budget limit on this one. If you had a choice, whether it be a road car or a race car, and a circuit you would drive it on, what would you choose?
Oh God. Part of me wants to drive something classic, but part of me wants to drive a P1 LM. The McLaren P1 LM is the prettiest road car ever built. Hate me, shoot me, cancel me.
I will be completely honest with you. The same car that was piloted by one Kenny Brack up the Goodwood Hill climb a few years ago.
Goodwood. Goodwood's not a bad place to go, is it, if you're going to take a car? Admittedly, this is going to sound, with all the circuits in the world I could choose, it's going to sound really stupid because I've never driven it. I'd love to drive Oulton Park. I would love to. And because I know the place so well, and, iRacing does such a good job of simulating it, I feel like I could be quite decent around there. But I don't know what it'd be. I want to go for something classic because I feel like if I say a P1 LM, it's very it's a modern car. Yeah, of course it's going to be quick, but I'd want to drive something like an F40 or maybe even F50, but I think the F40 would take it for me. No, I know what it'd be. It'd be a Jaguar XJ 220S. The Tom Walkinshaw Racing developed one, which was like 690 horsepower in 1991, and it was absolutely mental. I'd probably crash and catch fire and all sorts, but like that car is just one of the absolute epitomes of point it in the direction you want to go, put your foot down, and it'll try and go in a different direction. Like, it's just put it where you want it and floor it. And oh God, what a machine. But yeah, I think I'd want to drive that just to experience it coming off the ground over hilltop, because it probably would.
And where we should drive it, Chaz, is more to the point.
I think if we're going to go for top speed, I'd probably have to drive it at Le Mans. I'd love to drive Le Mans. I know how legendary it is. You know, it's. I think the Nürburgring wouldn't do it justice. So for the long straights of Le Mans, I think I'd be pretty happy to drive it there.
Okay, right. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because I have to give what, in relation to what Chaz has just said. So, XJ220S, developed by TWR at Le Mans. Okay. I'm going to bring in another Jaguar that was also developed by TWR. You might know where I'm going with this. It is the XJR15.
Yes. Very pretty car.
Very pretty car indeed, and was actually between 1990 and 92. 6-litre V12, 450 brake. I think it was about 450 brake horsepower, or so. The place where I would like to drive that car. You mentioned about top speeds. Well, I want a bit of a challenge as well with some top speeds, and hopefully this does point in the right direction when you go down Pouhon, Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, Kemmel Straight's good. Even the run up to Blanchimont, you know, you've got enough time to clench your buttocks for the fast left.
Squeaky bum time and all that. But Chaz, it's been a pleasure having you on Commentator's Corner, buddy. Thank you very much. And we'll catch up soon indeed, I'm sure. Nice one. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon. So that's it. Don't forget, if you do want to like and subscribe to the channel, feel free to do so. A big thank you to Chaz, and we'll see you on episode 11 of Commentator's Corner whenever I can get round to doing that on. But until next time, stay safe, keep it pinned. We'll see you very soon. Thanks a lot.